Hello and good afternoon, Xbox Nation. Welcome to this week's new episode of X Vlog Live. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL. Folks, for the next 70 or so minutes, you're going to be entertained like you have never been entertained before because I'm sitting down with the very talented Jesse Norris of Xbox Era. And if you don't know who Jesse Norris is, well, I'm going to tell you, folks. He is the reviews editor. He is the podcast producer. He is the staff writer. And guess what? There's more. He's been doing reviews for quite a while. He just dropped his Wild Hearts review. Jesse, thank you so much for being here, brother. We have some pretty interesting topics, and one of which that we were just talking about in the green room. I can't wait to talk about with you because of your rich history in being a member of the gaming community, not just as a gamer, but as a writer, as a producer of Xbox Era. From someone would consider you to be a part of the gaming media. I have some questions regarding the. Well, I mean, listen, you can say kind of, but you do reviews and you do them well. I'm very interested to get your opinion on the hit pieces that have been nonstop for Xbox Game Pass being basically a flop in many of the articles. You know, that it's not, that Phil Spencer lied, that there are no, that they're not making profits, and it's cannibalizing its own games. And many of the opinions, many of the articles that I have read, and I've read about a dozen of them, are all going on what was misquoted. They did not go and do the actual research. They did not read the actual document. That's an absolute fact, because the document last night on Primetime Gaming was read aloud by Everborn Saga, and it sounded very different, Jesse, than what the gaming media was putting out there, specifically GI.biz. More importantly, even IGN. But first of all, how the heck are you? Welcome.
I was doing real good, and then I looked to my right, and the code for Atomic Heart just showed up. I was expecting it tomorrow. Woo! Well, I'm doing great now. An extra day.
I love it. That is let me tell you something, brother. Good on you that you got it. I didn't ask for it because, like we were talking about, I don't do reviews anymore because it's too much pressure. Not to mention,
and the nice thing is, so many of these are coming to that terrible dying service Game Pass that you can just play it when it hits anyways.
Dying, right? Like, it doesn't have a chance. We're gonna get into it. First of all, let's welcome in the already 125 people. Ooh. I remember back in the days where I was excited that 18 people were in the chat, and Mrs. Boomstick and I obviously have had a lot of growing
wonderful.
Yes, yeah, it absolutely is, Jesse. It is. We are thrilled to have as much success in a short amount of time, as well as Xbox Era for that matter. I mean, you guys are kicking ass and taking names.
We've been very lucky. It's been very consistent growth, which isn't always the norm. Like, we used to do a lot of giveaways, and then kind of realize if you do too many giveaways, sometimes those people just join for the giveaway and your views don't go up. So we've been trying to focus more on like just fostering a good community, with especially working with people like you and having you on the show and being on other shows, and just not trying to be hot take machines, just trying to be actual. And it's hard with Nick, because Nick has the worst opinions of all time. But, trying to be press unless, the people that will go for the hit pieces on Game Pass to get cheap clicks, like the Kotakus of the world.
Yeah, we're actually going to get into that, folks. And again, I know that if you tuned into Primetime Gaming last night, we had an outstanding near 600 people in the chat. And we had an amazing, solid 2-topic, 2-hour show with big opinions. This is X Vlog Live is meant to be a one-on-one, which was what I'm sitting here with Jesse. It's more of a chill 70, maybe at maximum 80-minute show. We have some good topics we're going to get into. Specifically, we're going to talk about what was said by the one of the community managers for Bethesda in the UK regarding the Starfield event that we're all holding our breath for. We got some new information on Stalker 2, but I do want to open up with the Game Pass conversation. And again, folks, I don't mean to bore you, but it bothers me. It bothers me when you have places like Kotaku, places like IGN, places like GameSpot, and even GI.biz. Like, I'm very surprised.
I'm not.
Well, I mean, look, I maybe I hold them at a higher candlelight than you do, and that's fine. But also,
it's even just, I just know so many of these places that are businesses looking, and they need ad money and they need clicks. They are just going to go for headlines and stuff that they know works. Like, you can watch like something like Linus Tech Tips. They're really good content that I think actually they try super hard to make things look and work and run great, but they have to give in to the YouTube ideology of nonstop focusing on farm and clicks, and that just ends up being almost every media outlet. So their headlines, their thumbnails, they're always going to end up looking bad to us because we try and avoid that, and we don't like that type of stuff. But the regular person, it pulls them in. You know, they know they're going to get us. They know they're going to get the core gamer, but to get the other people, unless you're Hogwarts Legacy, you've got to really push. You got to push
an
for the
agenda.
Clickbait.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know what? Look, here's the thing. The way that Xbox Era runs their content, the way that we run content here on Double Barrel Gaming would be considered grassroots, right? Like we do our due diligence to give everyone a fair shake. When Sony does something egregious, we talk about it. When Microsoft does something that we don't like, we will discuss it and put them on blast. Well, when Nintendo does a lot of things that we don't like, especially when it comes to asking full price money for old games, we just buy it because we're like, I'm a Nintendo nerd. Sorry, it's just I'm a part of the problem. But you know, we do celebrate gaming. We do celebrate these platforms. But I specifically want to grab your eye, if you will, from a producer writer perspective. Now, like I said in the opening, the Game Pass, the sky is falling articles have been going on for about 4 or 5 days. It all started with GI.biz, and of course, they immediately equated their article as Phil Spencer lying because of what he said in 2018, which I know I'm no mathematician, folks. That's 5 years ago. Now, I read verbatim last night what Microsoft and how Microsoft responded. And one of the things that I think I find, and I'm not going to read it again, folks. Go check out Primetime Gaming. You'll hear me read it verbatim. And it's what was said in that press release, Jesse, is a story in itself. Because as we know, you can say what you want about Microsoft and specifically Xbox, about them missing the mark when it comes to release dates, and sometimes getting themselves in trouble by offering up too much transparency about what they're doing. You can have that opinion, but what you can say about them is that they don't take their fan base and the development and production community lightly. Meaning, and what do I mean by that? Well, very simply, when they came up with Game Pass, listen, I understand, folks. I'm not a boob. It's a business. They want to make money. They want to be the Netflix of gaming. That's quote's been out there for half a decade. But you can't argue the value that we currently get in Game Pass. Right now, I specifically pulled 3 games that, without a doubt, Jesse, are going to hit high on Meta. They're going to hit high on interest from gamers, and more than likely, they're going to sell pretty well even on Game Pass. And the 4 games that, even though a couple of them are multi-plat, the exclusivity aspect of it is that they're in Game Pass day and date. You all have to do is press download. And some of them you can even pre-download, so when the game launches, it's ready for you. And I'm talking about Atomic Heart, Stalker 2, Lies of P, and Wulong. All certified, quote-unquote, bangers, as the kids like to say, right? Every one of those games we have been seeing consistently before their release, and none of them are out yet. Obviously, the closest one to release is Atomic Heart, and we just saw an 8-minute and 5-second gameplay footage released last week, and it's just mouth-wateringly good, right? Every one of those games are going to be $70 for anyone outside of Xbox. But if you are an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, well, you download those for the price of your subscription, which is currently $15 a month. Now, it could go up, folks. Sure. Everything's going up. So if it did go up, I would have a problem with it, because I think $15 is a nice, perfect amount of money. But I'm not a businessman. I don't have a business degree. Jesse,
and supposedly, we know the family plan is coming too.
Yes.
So
which is going to equate to $5 a month for 5 people. Yes.
So even if the base goes up to 20, if you can get one person to split it with you, it ends up being the old cost. And if you can get 5 people splitting it, because it's up to 5 full accounts, all getting Ultimate, it'll be really darn cheap. And you get 2 games a year. You get 1 game a year out of it. If you're splitting it for $5, it's paid for itself. But I put an article together and I linked it for you in the private chat.
Nice.
I went through and I got everything I could find that is confirmed for 2023 in Game Pass, and it's already over 60 things as like day one or new ports or stuff. It's the only real issue with the Game Pass is that there is simply too much for the average person to ever be able to play.
There you go.
And as a reviews editor and someone covering games now, I have no idea how we're going to, even just if we just covered Game Pass games, it would be really hard to keep up. So the articles are always, they're selective in how they look at things. They're just, who is going to say what, which angle they're going to take on something, how they're going to look at a situation. Phil talking about how it brings people into the ecosystem, they end up spending more.
Yes, that's a fact, Jesse. That's a fact.
Yeah, and for Microsoft's point of view, cannibalizing sales isn't the same as having that happen on... It's not like that's in a vacuum. Like, okay, the sales are cannibalized, they don't make enough money now. It's, well, no, they've pulled people into their ecosystem. It's a long-term play of, I now have a new customer that might not have been here before.
Yep.
They're playing all these games on Game Pass. Maybe they play some free-to-play. They buy microtransactions. They buy other games. If a game's leaving Game Pass that they like, they get 10% off. Maybe it's on sale. They grab it. Like, it's another entry system or another entry port into the ecosystem. And it's very different from Netflix in that it's not the main way people consume stuff. Netflix needs you to say stubbed. Microsoft can be like, okay, you sub a couple times a year. You sub for 3 or 4 months out of it, but you're also buying games. You've got the system now, or you're using us on PC and you didn't use this before. Like, all of this adds up in different ways, where so many of the articles just look at that. Well, after a year, it cannibalizes sales on stuff. They leave out the after the year part.
Yeah, which is... I'd like you to elaborate on that for a second. Because first of all, you're going down a very, very lighted path, and I love it because... Folks, everyone that's here, we got almost 300 people here, which is bonkers. Like, I'm incredibly humbled that we at 13-minute mark, we got almost 300 people here. That means that you're enjoying the content, and my
you're
wife
putting in the work, Boom. People like it.
No, thank you. I appreciate it, Jesse. I do want you and I to continue this conversation, but I just want to say this for context, folks. Game Pass currently, if you're a $15 a month subscriber, equates to about $180 a year, right? That's fine. Most gamers, the average gamer, the normie, if you will, no offense if anyone's just an average gamer, they buy 2 to 3 games a year. Now, granted, the price has gone up. 7 games are $70, right? So 3 games, if you bought 3 games, cost you $210, right? A little bit more after tax. But for $180, not only could you potentially get some of those games in Xbox Game Pass, you would probably get about maybe 300 others that are in there currently.
I think between console and PC, it's over 500 right now, but they only ever advertise 100 because they found the average non-hardcore gamer got really intimidated if the number was too big.
Yes. Yeah. If it's too much to look through. 100%. 100%. So think about that for a second, folks. We're hearing for the last week about how Microsoft... See, this is what kind of gets me a little frustrated, folks. When did these websites start pocket watching for Microsoft. Like, this is a $3 trillion company. Do you honestly care whether they're making a profit? Does it really matter to that said editor that's writing this hit piece like it's the best thing that they've ever written? It's ridiculous. See, what I find frustrating as a content creator is I'm always a celebration guy first. I will always raise people up as much and as high as I can. Even if I'm the one on the bottom, it's fine as long as you're raised up. That's how I was raised to be, and I'm okay. I don't have to come in first place, folks. Someone else does. I'm a congratulator. I'm not a hater. And the problem with these hit pieces or these stories, Jesse, is the fact that in that press release, they specifically said that their goal, yes, of course they want to make money. Of course they want to say they have 50 million subscribers. But their main goal is to offer another way for developers of every size, publishers of every size, to find another way to sell their game and bring it to more people. That is not discussed in these articles. It is unbelievable how the value proposition in 2023, where, and again, folks, make fun of me all you want. Okay, I'm a realist. Okay, I'm a guy that worked real hard. I'm retired. I retired at 44. Not many people can say that, and I'm proud that I put in the work to get that done. And my pension is great, but it does have a ceiling. In 2023, Jesse, we're paying $12 for eggs. Okay, which is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, right? And again,
for no reason too. Just they can do it, so they do it.
They just can, and they do it, and we have no choice because I like eggs, right? So the whole point of that is that in none of these articles ever say, well, Microsoft is looking out for the best interest of their consumer, offering a deal unlike anything that has been done before it. That is my problem, Jesse.
It's when you go this angle on a story, it then makes it tough to take you seriously if you change your tune later on, because it just becomes clear that you know that you were taking a very specific tact to try and maximize your clicks, and it ends up really hurting your credibility in the long run. And I do think that is a part of why so many gaming media sites have struggled to build and maintain an audience compared to content creators and streamers who play and talk about games from a place generally of enjoyment instead of constant criticism, and not criticism in a way where they're just trying to explain something or break it down, just more in a way where they're just trying to get hate clicks, because hate clicks are a lot easier. And that's one thing we try to avoid. Like, if we're going to be negative or something about a situation, we try and make it very clear why we feel like that. Like, we gave a 3.0 to Wanted Dead because myself and John playing it, we were both like, we just don't think this is an enjoyable thing. Not that other people can't enjoy it. It could very well become a cult classic and all that type of stuff. But it's, my Scorn review was probably too negative. I was very mad at that game. But other than that, I think the best way to go about it is, if you are going to get into a story that can be seen as a negative take on something, is you need to fully dive into it and explain it. And so many of these articles just took what GIBiz said at face value, didn't read the quotes, didn't get into it, and they just rolled with it knowing, oh, Game Pass news hits hard. Spicy Game Pass news is going to hit even harder probably. They got their hate clicks, but then in the future, people can call them out if it turns out, like Phil has said, and obviously don't believe business executives' speech is generally, how can I say the least amount of truth possible while sounding like I'm being open? Because that's just the way business works. You can't be honest, especially if you're in a publicly traded company. But Phil has said it's profitable. I don't think he'd say that if it wasn't.
Well, he'd be lying to his investors, and that would cause problems.
Yeah, you can't do that. And companies... Right. And their response was, hey, more and more people want to work with us because this works. Like, you could tell if we couldn't get any companies into Game Pass, it then yes, it's not working. But obviously, we're getting more and more. There's over 60 things already announced, with only a handful of them being first party. Like Game Pass deals, especially for smaller indie devs or people self-publishing on ID at Xbox, are enormous. It can immediately cover all of the cost of their development and make it so that their game is a success by default, and their company can keep existing. And then from there, like they've talked about, for big companies who don't need that, then it becomes how many people play it, how many people download it, how long do they play it, we'll pay you based on that. But for the smaller places, like it's not just one monolithic setup. It is this deep, very obfuscated, because obviously you can't break down the financials of every deal. Some companies have. They can come out and say it, I think. But they've got a ton of different setups depending on the size of the dev and the pub and all these different things, the size of the game. Like you can imagine with Koei Tecmo, they probably paid them a bunch of money up front, and they're going to pay them a bunch of money for everyone that plays that game, depending on how long they play it. Like it works because they make money as a platform, getting more people in. The companies that they work with get a bunch of money either right at the start or over time. Like it's you can feel that nobody actually is looking into it too hard. They just have their article, they see an easy headline, and they just run with it, and it just gets really...
It's messy.
And it's annoying how typical it is, where you never see the corrections, you never see the deep dive things, you just see people going with the cheap pop, essentially. Like, what can I do to get that immediate hit? I got it. Okay, I'm not even going to ever bother correcting it if it's proven wrong.
Yeah. No, it's disappointing. You know, I want to bring into the conversation, Jesse. I think you know I think you know this dude. His name is Mike Rose. He's at Rave of Ravendale. He obviously is one of the he works with the publishing house that brought us Descenders, one of the most successful Xbox Game Pass releases. It is my nephew Tyler's #1 game. He comes and he records himself crashing, and he uses up all my space. So when I go to record a clip, it tells me I have no more space. And thank you, Tyler. I love you. But he put out a tweet yesterday. The 15th. Yeah, yesterday. I want to read it, folks, because this is a man that understands the business of gaming. He understands the business and the advantage of Xbox Game Pass. And I've spoken to several developers of smaller games that basically my first question is, hey, is your said new game coming into Xbox Game Pass? And some are an immediate yes, it is, because it's good for our business. And others have told me, Boom, I'd love it to be in Game Pass, but there's a waiting list, so I'm waiting.
Yeah,
that's a fact, folks. That is a fact. But let me read you the 2 tweets from Mike Rose. It says, every time Game Pass is in the news, my Descenders search fills with mentions as people on both sides try to explain why Descenders is proof of their own claim about Game Pass. Every single time, oh boy, do I learn that gamers do not understand how video games work at all. And this is what he said as a follow-up when he was being asked what he meant by the community. And it's jarring. All I can say is this. We are aiming to get every single title we publish from now on onto Game Pass. In doing so, we'll secure success for each title and relieve the immense pressure for the devs. But please, gamers, continue to explain why this is bad for us. I mean, now listen, I don't know how, Jesse, I don't know how clear anyone could potentially be, but I think that is in itself coming from someone who understands the business, who's in the business of selling video games. What are your responses to Mike's opinion on this?
I think it's not just gamers. I think it is quite often people in the industry too. Like, it's an unfortunate thing, but a lot of people, the gaming coverage industry has mostly been based out of San Francisco. It ends up being really small for how big gaming is. It's actually tiny. which, and it ends up being, and you can see with certain things when they pop up, it ends up being a little hive-mindy at times, and also full of people that grew up on PlayStation and Nintendo, and they know those platforms better. They don't know or follow, especially after Xbox One. They didn't really follow Xbox much anymore. Even some of the bigger podcasts out there barely feel like they're Xbox platform focused. They're more entire gaming platform focused, and you just see it so much. Fans end up following talking points from their preferred creators, and there's so many of us on YouTube who don't know the gaming industry, and getting to see something like the Double Fine documentary, for if you've watched all 22 hours of it, is really enlightening because of just how hard it is to make anything, how hard it is to make any money, how hard it is to have the money to originally make something. Knowing trying to even understand the financials of how all of this stuff can work, like we don't know. I doubt most media people know, but so many end up treating it like, well, I know better. That's actually one of the things I yell at Nick about a lot. It's like, you just don't know. If you had the right training, maybe you could get good at it and you'd know, but there's so many layers here, and we don't get to see almost any of them. But then you will get constant articles that are coming from a place like they know better. Even the analysts and stuff who have NPD numbers feel like they know better. But then the CMA's thing, or the EU's, one of them comes out and it's okay. Well, actually, the ship-through number on Series consoles versus PlayStation consoles is really close. That's because we know that Xbox is also putting Series consoles into their data centers and doing all that with so they've got all these Series X chips. People are like, well, how come I can't always get a Series X? Well, it's because they're also loading them into their data centers as well. Yes. And the Series S is the main thing you end up getting at your retail. How many X's are going out versus S's, like, we never end up knowing, but people will say, oh, well, it's obviously a 2-to-1 difference. And it's like, well, you don't know. You're not getting those numbers. But people will always act like they're coming from a place where they do know. And it's like, well, no, the reality is you don't. That's it. Yes. But people can't just say, well, I don't know for sure. They have to have an opinion so they can write an article and they can keep doing these things. And then they think, okay, and people will take them as an expert and go on Twitter and go on Reddit and yell at each other over it nonstop because everything becomes a list war. And I am unbelievably sick of all the list warring. Like, that's like 99% of discussion around games now. It's rarely about games, rarely about even things coming and just talking about them and trying to, or even the industry itself. It just ends up being, well, my preferred platform has A, your preferred platform has B, let's fight over it in 9,000 different ways forever. And it's tiring. And it's tiring, it's frustrating, it's boring at times, for sure. Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, again, folks, we're not going to spend the entire 70 minutes talking about this. We got a couple of other hot topics to get into. I just wanted to open up with this one, and I specifically wanted to grab Jesse's ear from not a gamer's perspective, but from someone that produces content for a very popular site in Xbox Era, especially at xboxera.com, and does the production stuff behind the scenes for their show, which is weekly with John and Nick. And sometimes OBM when he's allowed on the show. OBM, I know you're listening. He was real busy working on that 20th anniversary book, which we finally finished. It's finally done. And that's going into production soon, and we'll start going out to all the Kickstarter backers. I think I did not the highest tier. I think I did the third highest tier for that. I'm very excited. That book was, holy crap, that was a lot of work. Thankfully, I didn't do almost anything. It was all pre-drag, our art guy who is unbelievable and super passionate. OBM, Sicka Mechanico, like they were the superstars on that one. So if you back that, apologies it took so long. It was really, really big, and oh my God, does it look good. It's going to be worth it in the end. If you go on the Kickstarter page, Boom, as a backer, you can get a PDF. Like, it's the whole thing. Oh, but it's a PDF, really? And you can go through and look at it and have it ready for, So any Kickstarter backers, that PDF's available for I backed day one. The minute you guys announced it, when I was watching your show when they announced it, I was like, where can I back? I'm backing this. This is good stuff. It's going to be my prize jewel
in the collection of Xbox stuff. But listen, let me catch up with some of the super chats. Jesse, we have 3 of them. The Black Harry Potter, my brother, he drops a very generous $10 super chat. And listen, just FYI, I was up to 2:33 in the morning playing Hogwarts. So yes, the Black Harry Potter was correct in saying, and he says it again, good morning, Mr. Boom. I heard you say it last night, and I'm glad we finally agree that Hogwarts Legacy is our game of the year. Indeed it is. It is my game of the year. The experience that I'm currently having with Hogwarts brings a giant, childlike, giddy-like smile to my face. I'm staying up way too late for a 52-year-old each and every day because I can't stop playing it. And what I equate this to, folks, is how I felt about Elden Ring last year. Like last year when I played Elden Ring, and I'm not a Souls guy, so that's why it's even more interesting to discuss, is that I should have hated Elden Ring. I should have hated Vampire Survivor because I don't like Rogue. But those 2 games were number 1 and number 2, respectively, for my game of the year for 2022. And the same excitement and joy and the thought of finding something new around every corner is what is happening and what has happened with Hogwarts. And it was the same exact thing with Elden Ring. It's just
the
amazing.
Love and attention given to, and especially like all the one-off assets and everything you find around the castle and around Hogsmeade and all these things. It's one of the it's a paint by numbers Ubisoft open world setup, but the open world is so well made and the combat's really fun that it's just it's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It's just if you get in FOMO, folks, this is the game to get FOMO for.
It'll certainly take up your time and be worth its price.
It is a life stealer, folks. The problem there is one major complaint with Hogwarts. It's too good because there's so many games I'm not going to have time to play because I can't get enough of the Wizarding World.
I put a post on our forums earlier or late last night, and it was pretty much the fact that so many people are list warring over first party stuff, and it's like, the only truth is that there is way too much for anyone to easily afford or ever play coming out this year. This year 100%. Might end up being one of the best years ever because so many things were delayed or pushed back during COVID, and they're all hitting this year. Like that's why last year was kind of barren for some things because it was the hardest hit year. And now everything's hitting in 2023, and it's like, how do we keep up? We don't have a huge crew. We've got a couple of guys that do video. It's like I'm really having to pick and choose over time because it's crazy.
Yeah, I literally was going to say that at some point it's just going to have to be like, well, we're going to have to get to the hot topic, and then if a game that isn't as popular in the zeitgeist with gaming is going to have to, there's only enough. There's only 24 hours in a day, folks, and there's only so much time. Real quick, Spider-Man drops, a very generous $20 super chat. And he says this: when Microsoft said their games were coming to PC and an outlet claimed this meant Microsoft was leaving console behind. But when Sony announced PlayStation was coming to PC, that same outlet said it was great that more players can play their games. Yes, dude, pull those receipts. I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about without throwing them under the bus publicly because, well, that's just who they are. Yes.
Well, it's like the Luke Plunkett stuff on Kotaku when Xbox got MKV support on the Xbox One, and he's like, this opens it up for pirates. And then PlayStation got it, and he's like, this is great. More people can watch stuff.
Yeah, it's.
And speaking of Sony on PC, I was actually streaming Returnal before this, and that game's pretty darn fun. It's $60 though for being 2 years old, which does feel like a bit much of an ask.
It should have been $40.
It maxed out at 5,700 on Steam as well. They have not had their pricing. I think the amount of time versus the price, I think, has definitely hurt their PC stuff. And you don't have the alternative that Xbox has, where everything's on the Windows Store and part of Game Pass if it's first party. So yeah, but that game's very fun. I don't know about $60 2 years later fun. Maybe wait on a sale, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, listen. My concern with the game was that, and again, I haven't played it. It doesn't respect your time in regards to the saving situation.
It's not a good roguelike. I'm enjoying the gameplay, but the actual, like, the setup of the roguelike part of it so far, it's not a treadmill. Like, one of my favorite games last year, Rogue Legacy 2, which was Xbox exclusive at launch, funnily enough, but never got talked about until it hit Switch. I gave it a 9.6. It was one of my favorite games of last year. It was a damn near perfect roguelike. And it's this constant treadmill of numbers going up, and it's very dopamine inducing. And there's not really much of that at all early on in Returnal. So,
I don't know. Listen, unfortunately, they'll probably get a sequel. Hopefully, they'll learn from their mistakes, especially with what you just talked about, and more importantly, the saving is a real issue.
But they let you pause mid-run now. You can, like, suspend and rejoin mid-run, but that's about it.
Yeah, they threw that in after everyone complained. That was their way of fixing the issue. I don't think that's a fix. I think
it was supposed to be like, oh, just use suspend mode on the PlayStation 5, but then that breaks all the time, or if the game has to update. It's kind of like quick resume. Like, if you quick resume something and you're focused on only using quick resume, well, if a game has an update, it has to close the game to update.
Yes.
So
and then if you're in the middle of a big run, you're screwed, which is dumb. No, I mean, I thank you for the clarification, but Dreadful Sean drops a very generous $5 super chat. Sean, thanks so much for popping in, brother. He says, popping in to like the stream and say that your new intro is fire. Yeah, that new intro comes the way of Sean Labrie, who is genius. He did one for me that I wanted for, I was actually going to do it for shorts. And then when he did it, I was so infatuated with it. I put it on social media to check the pulse, and everyone that saw it was like, holy S, Boom, this is crazy good. This should be your opening. So then, of course, I sat and I thought about it, and I said, I'm trying to unify the channel. You're going to see some big changes coming where it's going to look really good, but I'm trying to do one uniform look, and also offer different optics per show. So not every show looks like the same show. And I wanted to start off with something as big as an intro and an outro. And I thought about it. I said, listen, I asked Sean specifically, could we keep the same beat? Could we keep the same aesthetics, but somehow change the characters and add the logo in on the back end of every show? And he's like, dude, that is brilliant. Send me the stuff. I send it to him, and he works so quick. Like, he's sometimes hard to get in touch with, and it's not because Sean is being a jerk. Sean is amazing. He is just loaded with work. So he was able to bang out 4 additional intros with all different characters. I think in a week. It's just incredible. So yeah, that's how that came to pass. So shout out to Sean Labrie. And I'm going to put all his information in all of the videos that I do. So if you want to get in contact with him, you'll have his email. You have where you can DM him on Twitter. And if you're a showrunner and you want to see if you can get work done, just reach out to him. It does take some time for him to get back to you, but he will get back to you. And also Sir X-Men drops a very generous $2 super chat. It says 80 million live gold members buy games out of the outright fact. I mean, people still buy games. I still buy games. If it's not in Game Pass, if it's on PlayStation, I buy it. If it's on Switch, I buy it. I just bought 2 copies of Metroid Prime Remake, one physical, one digital, because I love Metroid, and I'm going to leave one sealed because it's going to be worth a lot of money. But listen, Jesse, I want to get into some of the other topics. And one I want to get into is one that came across my desk late last night, and I sent it to you. Let's talk some Stalker 2. Now, obviously, Stalker 2, folks, is a big game. It's one of the first games that we're going to see running in Unreal Engine 5. It is an Xbox Series X and S exclusive. We've heard that developers say this publicly, that at this time there are no plans for a PlayStation launch.
They weren't doing any console version until Xbox came to them.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. Thank you, and thank you for bringing that up, because I actually heard that. I didn't know it was actually true, but yes, Xbox did go to them, and originally this was going to be PC only. So thank you for that clarification. I bring them up for 2 reasons. One, their story is incredible. This is a team that was in Ukraine when Russia invaded, right? They had to leave with their families. Some of their team members stayed behind to defend their country and have passed on during the war, which is very sad. By all rights, folks, this game should not exist. Production should have stopped, and we should have just heard about this years later when things kind of got sorted out. And we don't know how long it's going to be that Russia is going to either retreat or go further into the country. But they just announced, Jesse, their collector's edition, which looks awesome. I have a tweet in front of me, and this was yesterday. They said, Stalkers, it's time to talk about the most valuable thing in the zone, the harbor itself. A figurine, an artifact lamp, a map, a backpack, and other neat stuff come with different physical editions of Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl. And there was a four-page thread that they put in here. They go on to say this, Jesse. It could be taken along on a foray, or you can use it as an adorn on a shelf, navigate through the zone, open up cans, or even light a fire. Basically, everything a true stalker needs, and what is not forbidden to use outside of the perimeter. Now, what's interesting is there was a placeholder for the end of the year. J-Rock, good friend of the community, specifically asked, and this was on the UK aspect of it. He asks, is it releasing in December? Because it had a December placeholder date. And Stalker actually responded to J-Rock and said, that's a placeholder. We will announce the exact release date when the time comes. Now, if you didn't know, folks, and we've announced this many times, my wife and I wanted to do a very, very special giveaway. Now, we do a couple every year. Last year, during Christmas, we gave away $1,000 in 2 hours. Very, very hard to do on a retired salary, but we were able to do that through channel membership, which we put away along with the super chats. We tuck those away, and then we do these big giveaways. Well, this year, someone wrote, Boom drives like Stevie Wonder. Yeah, some of the cars it just handled terrible. I'm sorry.
And it's the winter, too. You probably didn't have snow tires on.
I probably did not. I just played the car, whatever it is. And yes, trust me, I'm a good driver, folks. But my wife and I announced that in order to give back to the team of Stalker 2 and their families, we wanted to do something special, and we are giving away 15 copies of the game when it's released. We're going to have a special 1 hour or 90-minute release podcast where in that 60 or 90 minutes, we're going to give away 15 copies, and we're buying the 15 copies, not giving away Game Pass so you can download it. We're actually going to buy the copies, so that studio will get their 70%. And obviously we know that that's the cut. Microsoft gets 30, they get 70, but we wanted to buy 15 copies of that game, and we're going to give those 15 copies away. The first 8 of them are going to be giving away to anyone that is a channel member, and the next 7 are going to be anybody in the live chat at that time. We don't pick ourselves; we let the picker do it. And if you win, you get a copy. And even if you're outside of the Americas, we will get you that copy one way or another, even if we have to send you the money. And then we hope that you, in fact, do buy the game, because the whole point of the giveaway is to make sure those families receive the 70% of the game sales. And again, this is just a small channel helping a small developer, and it's our way of giving back. But Jesse, this is a big game in 2023. We don't know when 2023 it's coming, but I mean it's not even cryptic. They really don't know. I would imagine that it's day to day for the studio. They're no longer in Ukraine. Their families are safe. They're safe. What are your thoughts on this? When do you expect to get a release date on this? Do you think this potentially waits to maybe Microsoft has one of their developer directs potentially? Because we know that
I think the developer directs will probably just be first party. I don't know that they'll have a lot of third party.
I'm hoping
the way
that
it was produced and everything. I think they might have other shows or other live streams and things dedicated for third parties. We'll see. I do think this probably ends up being. There's so much in the first half that I don't know that they'll feel any pressure to get out until the second half. But
so, do you think this shows up at E3 on their stage?
I think it might. Like it would be 2 years in a row or 2 out of 3 years, but still. Like, if they can give a date and they've got a nice meaty chunk of gameplay to show and more things, because there's still a lot we haven't seen in the game. I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, I cannot wait for this game. I'm not buying the collector's edition as it's raised in price due to the the current market.
It's like $380 now, I think.
Change, yeah. It's. I mean, listen, I love collector's editions, but there's two things. One, Mrs. Boom and I are saving for a place, so we got to be very careful on how we spend the money. Number two, you guys can't see it. I have, and this is why I need a studio. We need a much bigger place so I can have my stuff behind me, so you're not watching peacocks. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's Mrs. Boom's design. She's a great designer, and it makes the house look really sharp. But when you're a podcaster, you want to show off your Master Chief helmet, which is in front of me, and of course the Doomslayer helmet.
If I could only I got so much stuff up there too.
Yeah, I have the light. I have the Covenant sword as a light. I have a lot of really cool things you usually just see in pictures. I'd love to have it behind me. Eventually, one day I'll have a studio. But for now, this is fine. This is fine the way it is. I am very much looking forward to this game. I did not play the original because that was PC only.
Be ready for something very tough, very realistic, focused. Yes. You got to be slow. You got to take your time.
You got to be methodical.
You get. It feels unbelievably rewarding to just do even things that might be mundane in any other shooter. That game, it's emergent gameplay based on all its weird physics systems and interactions and stuff. If it's anything like the first one, it'll be something special. Because the first one still has some of the coolest moments, but they always happen organically, and it's super Euro janky. And I'm wondering if this one's going to be more polished. Is it still going to be a little janky? Because some of that jank, I think, is its charm. So I'm real curious to see how this one turns out, especially with the unbelievable circumstances in which it's been crafted.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's a unique game. I'm hoping for a step back, or at least a mode that offers more of a shooter aspect. I don't want to have.
If it's anything like Metro was, where they finally went in, they gave you an easy
Metro
mode.
Was perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, I enjoyed Metro 1 and 2 quite. Even the third one, I actually thought the third one, for me, because of the open world aspect, was the pinnacle. Looking on the map, finding something out, going to that point, finding some different things, finding locations that weren't on the map. I loved the third one. I hope that,
and all of them being it was more like hub worlds, and it wasn't just this enormous map that felt daunting. It was these small sections of areas that were nice and densely filled, and I think that helped it a lot. Also, I would highly recommend playing it in the original language. I did not like the English dub of that game.
I would probably play with subtitles. My wife and I watch a lot of foreign things. We're into like some of the Asian dramas, specifically the Korean dramas. We love those, and even if it's available, we don't do the we don't do the American dubs because it's just terrible.
One fun thing: Wild Hearts' English dub is phenomenal.
Really? Okay, that's good to know. That's excellent.
And that's normally not Monster Hunter's English dubs are notoriously terrible. They're super. Everyone's just this super over the top American guy. And in Wild Hearts, if someone's Japanese, they speak in English but with a Japanese accent. If there's an American character, they just it's so much. Yeah, I love that game.
Well, listen, we'll talk about that, where people could check out that review, because you quite enjoyed the game, and I can't wait to read the review myself. But I mean, listen, Stalker 2 is big. It's going to be a big game for Xbox. It is Xbox exclusive. I wouldn't be surprised to see this eventually move over to PlayStation 5. But if Microsoft is learning from the ways of Sony's behavior, this game should stay exclusive to Xbox and PC.
I don't think they'll ever give into that. I really don't. I think as long as their deals will always focus on it comes to Game Pass. Sometimes that means it doesn't go somewhere else right away. But I don't think they're ever going to want to give in, especially because when so much of their argument with Sony right now and them trying to subpoena Sony's records is based around those shitty practices. So,
yeah, I mean, listen, I agree. I think Microsoft has a different way of doing business. It frustrates me as a fan sometimes because you just see the way Sony does their business, and Sony is number one in the market for a lot of that kind of that business practice. Now, is it right? Some people would say no, but it is also a business, and they want your money and they want you on their platform. And sometimes when you look at like the exclusivity stuff or timed exclusivity, Microsoft gets 3 months, Sony gets 2 years, and people scratch their head like, I don't understand what is happening. But I say this before. I've said this before, Jesse, and I will say it again. I think you will agree that the game itself isn't the exclusivity aspect of it. It's Game Pass is the finite exclusivity. They get
3 months because they don't think it matters to pay for more. Like Sony's business model and their fans' expectations are so much based on, well, we are your default place to play things. Mm-hmm. We want to. You think of playing a game, you just think of Sony first, and Microsoft's is we are your default place for our games, but also Game Pass and the best value we can give.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
It's a very different business proposition from Nintendo, which is almost entirely powered by first party, and Sony, 100%. Which is actually mostly powered by third party. But people always think of their first party as what really pushes it. And it's big and it matters a bit. But them being the default place for third party games is why they're the market leader.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, we're going to see what happens. Obviously, next week, we talked about it last night, Microsoft is going to be sitting down with the EU Commission to go over what their concerns are, and I guess try and lock down solutions or concessions or remedies, as they're called in the UK. And hopefully they were able to do that with some monster concessions in the form of, keeping it on PlayStation for a decade and parity and everything else. And they get this deal done and just be done with it.
Parity's not good enough. They've said repeatedly, we don't want parity. We want what we have now, which is where they get exclusives. I'm like,
yeah, and that's not going to happen because you're not buying anything. You're not investing. So go F yourself, Jim Ryan. Sorry. Someone had to say it. And I'll say it. And again, I don't want to steer this off the course and go racing down the hill, but see, that mentality is balls of steel. That's to suggest that, well, parity isn't good enough and we're not making the $70 billion investment tells me that the arrogance of Sony stinks. Their business practices stink. Their consumerisms are off the chart terrible. You ever try and get a refund from them, they'll lock down your account. And, there's a reason why there are $70 games outside of just inflation. There's a reason why they're one of the only publishers that charge a cross-play tax. There are the list goes on and on for these practices that are that in any other market, Jesse, would be considered anti-consumer by leaps and bounds. But somehow, their fan base cheers this on. I said this last night, and I'll say it again, just in case you missed last night's show, before we move on to the last topic of the show. How is it? Okay, now if you're a PlayStation fan, I mean no offense towards you, but hear me out. MLB The Show 23 is coming into Game Pass day and date. In Game Pass, day and date. You know where it's not going day and date? The $3 or more service that Sony currently offers, which I just re-upped for $120 because I like having all the services. It's not going into PlayStation Plus Premium. It's going to cost you, if you live here in New York, where I live, $76.43 after tax for the PlayStation version. Think about that for a second, folks. How ridiculous is that on paper? Even more ridiculous to say it out in the open. You say to yourself, wait a second. So what you're telling me, Boom, and how you're painting this picture for me is that on the left-hand side a first-party developed game is going to Xbox Game Pass day and date, and PlayStation is not offering their fan base this into the service that they charge $3 more than Xbox Game Pass. Please, someone make sense of that to me. Yeah, Jesse, talk about it.
It's pretty much, I see people in chat saying like, oh, eventually Sony will just do exactly what Xbox is doing. Like, no, they can't afford it. They don't have the number of first party studios to maintain it first party wise, and they are not already paying for like what they had Shadow Warrior 3 in there for 3 months. Like, they don't do third party day one deals on PlayStation Plus, and I don't see that changing. No. The only place they put work and money into is generally the monthly PlayStation Plus extra games, which is like they have a really good month coming up, but it's a really good month of older stuff. Finally, you get the big thing is Horizon Forbidden West going in there, which is smart because they've got an expansion coming. So it's like they'll strategically add big things in, but they're not going to start doing this day one third-party stuff, which you need to properly maintain people wanting to spend more on a sub. Right. Like, people are going, if they're only doing it to play online and they're mostly playing Overwatch or Modern Warfare, like, or Warzone, they're mostly on free-to-play Fortnite and Rocket League. To entice people to go and pay more money, you need a constant amount, like a large number of games coming in. New things, too, not just old. Like, it's nice to get a huge backlog of older things, but to pull in and become big enough for it to make financial sense, like, they don't have all the money that Xbox does. They don't have, and I don't know if they ever will. Maybe they will at some point, but they don't have a cloud streaming alternative for it. That's only PlayStation 3 and before stuff for the streaming, and that's still only in a few countries. Like, they're not able to attack it from as many different angles as Xbox is, thanks to being a part of Microsoft and having Azure and giving a lot of their Series X stock over to cloud blades instead of server blades instead of selling them directly to customers. Their big bet is PSVR 2, which the hardware sounds awesome outside of it being tethered and the software being a little light at launch. Like, it's reviewing really well. That's more the stuff they end up going for. They're trying to maximize the traditional model. They're not pushing this sub-service the same way. It's a very different proposition from them. And even if they did transition eventually into day and date, I think that would just be day and date on PC. I don't think day and date into their sub-service is happening anytime soon. It'll be years before that. And it might even be years before they do day and date on PC. They're going to want their own store so that they can have cross-buy and cross-save and everything built in and not have to give a cut up to anyone. Until that type of stuff happens, they're not following Microsoft's model the same way. The only thing they're doing is everything they can to try and kneecap Microsoft's model at the moment, because they know
they can't.
If Microsoft can get ABK in there, they lose a ton of market share. Like, they'll still probably be market leader if you ignore Nintendo, like everyone seems to do for some reason. It's weird. So many seem so afraid of Xbox being a market leader when it's not like Sony's a good one. They don't. Yeah,
they're terrible.
Their strategies are not helping their customers nearly as much as they're hurting other customers.
Yep.
So we're going to do everything we can. We're going to get exclusive DLC that generally is low effort, especially if it was like Destiny. It was always bad. We're going to get these exclusive things for our fans that they can, or we'll have these games that only our fans can then pay for. It's not like Microsoft pays a deal to get something it's in Game Pass, which so many of us have, and we benefit from it. But it's just not like that with the other two. And so much of the discussion around it definitely turns into people being used to the old way, not really wanting that to change, being used to, well, I've got a PlayStation, so I can play pretty much everything. Oh, damn, I don't want to get an Xbox because then I don't know the ecosystem. It ends up feeling like so much of the discussion comes from a place of annoyance instead of what reality actually is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. And I know there's a lot of people going back and forth in the chat. I understand that MLB made the deal. I understand that MLB owns the license, but the game is still made by a first party of Sony. Sony owns the first party that makes this game. They could and should make that deal, the same deal that Microsoft made to get it into Xbox Game Pass, Sony could have done to get it into their top tier service. If you don't want to put it in the two bottom tiers, I hear you, but at least offer it to your $18 a month customers. And they don't. And that, folks, is the inherent problem. Anti-consumer Sony, that's who they are. And apparently the media, the consumers, the gaming community, again, it's one of those things, Jesse. PlayStation, no matter what they do that's egregious, good, no matter how good Xbox does, they're bad. It's baffling. It is a baffling thought and theory. But I do want to get to the last topic of the show. Folks, we're talking about Starfield. We have some new information about the showcase, but unfortunately, it's not what you think. Yesterday, it was brought to our attention by the community manager of Bethesda in the UK regarding the basically gorilla or elephant in the room, which is, of course, Starfield in 2023, when the game is coming out. Is it June 29th, like everyone? Are the marchers right? And I'm part of the marchers. And at this point, I've given up hope. We're too close to March, not coming March. So it's going to be June, hopefully. But I think what we're all holding our breaths for, folks, is when the showcase is going to happen. I thought it was going to be early February with the potential of a March release. Now some people are saying that it's the end of March, early April, leading right into the June release. I'm assuming we're going to get a big presentation at E3 in the middle of June. And then obviously it's going to come out June 29th. But this is what I have in front of me, exactly what was said. And the story that I pulled says, as fans eagerly await the dedicated Starfield showcase, Bethesda announced that it's still, quote unquote, sorting stuff out and needed more time before unveiling the game. Obviously this comes the way. Let me see if I could pull it up. Jesse, I think I sent it to you as well. Let me just see if I could. I got it right here in front of me. They go on to say, this is directly from the community manager. They say this, folks, we'll have more to share on the showcase when it's ready to be. Still sorting some stuff out. I know that's not the answer you want, but nothing specific is being withheld. I mean, it's disappointing, Jesse, to be honest with you. I think everybody, and I think at this point in the game, people just want a date to hang on, like a date to to anticipate. When are we going to get a chance to see this game in full action? Because this is not going to be like some of the stuff they've released previously, where it's going to be like music playing in the background. You can see a robot walking all by itself. It's going to be gameplay. That's the whole point of this. It's to show gameplay, something we've all been wanting to see, full on action-packed gameplay, showing us flying off the planet, flying into the planet, leveling up your ship, changing your ship, customizing your ship. This is everything that we're going to see. When do you kind of think they're going to let the cat out of the bag, at least?
It's tough. I know they've got Redfall coming, so it would be before May. I doubt it would be after May. That would be too close to E3.
Yep.
I would also say community managers generally don't know anything. They just get told this is the line to say if people ask, and that's about it. So for the most part, I don't think anything's really changed. It could be whenever they feel like. I think in this day and age, we've come to realize Nintendo can announce a direct a day before. Sony can announce a state of play showcase a week before, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Some people were complaining it was too long, that they had to wait 2 weeks for the developer direct. Like, I think in the end, it could be at any point. We'll find out 1 to 2 weeks beforehand, and it'll be fine. If the game is coming in June, like people seem to think, and they're going to do another gameplay thing, it would probably be well before E3, because then you'd imagine they'd have something else at E3. Like, we did get a decent amount of gameplay and stuff, but even then, with how big this game is, what they showed last June is still probably just like a smidgen of what's in that game. So, like, the actual docking onto other ships to raid them or to help them, there are so many different aspects to this game, which is why it's taken so long. But yeah, with new game announcements or anything like this, community managers will be given a script, pretty much like, hey, if anyone's asking, there's no updates. Obviously, it's going to come directly. And also, like, other regions generally won't know. It's going to be the US for a US dev. And for pretty much anything Xbox or Bethesda, it's generally US centric. So unless you're getting something directly from Maryland, we're in the same boat we were. We don't know. It could be any time. It could be maybe they wait till E3 and then it's like this big thing there. Because if it's coming out in June, I doubt it. But the only answer is no idea.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's definitely a big question mark. We don't know. I see a lot of people asking specifically about the Stalker 2 thing. Folks, listen, as you know, we're all about choice, right? We're all about inclusion, especially that's super important for us in the channel. Stalker 2 is going to be available both on Steam and on Xbox. If you are one of the winners, your choice. It's no hair off our backs. If you want,
and I do believe if you buy the Xbox version digitally, you'll get it on the Windows Store.
There you go. So there's that. So again, if you specifically want it on one platform or the other, we're not going to fight with you. We're going to give
Windows Store is okay. It used to be really terrible and games would never install. They've slowly clawed back that awful Windows 8 infrastructure everything was built on, and it's okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now
I have more issues with Steam. I actually run into a ton of issues with Steam on review codes. My God, I hate that.
Well, like I said, folks, I hope that answers your question. Of the 15 copies, if you are one of the 15 winners, we will buy the copy wherever you want the copy. You want it on Steam, we'll get it for you. You want an Xbox, we'll get it for you. It's not a problem. Choice is king. Know that, I mean, there are only 2 places to get it. That's where we're going to offer it. And if you're outside of the United States, because we can't ship codes, it's dumb. I don't like this region thing. It's just dumb.
It's because the costs are always different.
Yeah,
you buy a code in Argentina for like $25 US, then everyone would just do that. That's why they end up restricting it.
No, it's fine. We will get you the money one way or another. Obviously, we use PayPal only, folks. We don't use Cash App. So if you win and you're outside of the country, we will of course give you your winnings, because that's one of the few channels that actually do that. We'll pay the transfer fee. It's fine. It's just a couple extra bucks, but we only use PayPal because it's safe for us. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us today. A solid 70-minute show. Hopefully you enjoyed the topics of conversation. Hopefully you enjoyed my ridiculous driving, because it's pretty bad. I drive better. You want to hear something? I'll let this live on the air. I love Forza Horizon, and 5 is just God tier great. But to this day, I think my favorite driving mechanics come the way of Dirt 5. Like, I absolutely love that game, and because you see it being played all the time. I have hours and hours. I want to say I have at least 15, maybe even more hours worth of gameplay recorded, because I really, really enjoy Dirt 5. But listen, Jesse, sell your brand, brother. Talk about Xbox Era. Tell everyone what you do there, and more importantly, what you dropped today and what you got going on, and where can people reach out to you on social media?
Yeah, so we're xboxera.com. All our links are there. We're at youtube.com/xboxera. Today I had a Wild Hearts review go out. If you want to go check it out on the YouTube page, I put a lot of effort into the video review. I think it came out okay. We have Like a Dragon Ishin review coming from our writer Harmonica, and video from Sika Mechanico, so it'll be very nice. That hits real soon. My God, we have had a lot go up. We had a really good Hogwarts video go up from Sick making the video for Fairy Empire, our writer. I am JJS Norris on Twitter. I don't tweet that much. I mostly just make jokes at Jeff Grubb or make fun of Nick. That's most of my tweeting. But yeah, xboxera.com. I stream over on the Xbox Era on Twitch, and yeah. Oh, and we're doing a giveaway on Twitter right now for Wild Hearts, the Karakuri edition. So
nice.
That's a global Xbox code, so anyone can enter.
Excellent, brother. Well, listen, thank you so much for being here, brother. Definitely appreciate you taking the time from your very busy schedule to hang out. Hopefully you folks enjoy today's podcast enough to hit the like button. If you're new, finding the channel for the first time, please consider subscribing and helping us march. We're marching to 12K. We're 200 and something subs away from 12K. Would love to hit it this month. Please subscribe to the channel. And not for just giveaways, folks. Do it because you enjoy the content. We do this 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 5 different shows, 5 different panels, all fantastic content that is well researched. And like I said, you see, I read verbatim. I give credit where credit is due to the article writer and the site when I do read their articles, because we're all about that as well. And of course, I'm going to close out. Oh, real quick, thank you, a big thank you to all the super chats that came in. A lot of big ones today. Those do help us more than you can possibly understand. And of course, I'm going to close out the show with something that's important to me. Hopefully, one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. We'll see you next week on the newest episode of X Vlog Live.